If you spend any amount of time watching professional wrestling, one thing you'll notice is everyone's related to someone. From Vince himself with all his little McMahons, to the Flairs, to the Von Erichs, the list goes on. Professional wrestling, it's a family business. And one little dynasty that knows that business is the Laurinatis family. Youngest brother Marcus Laurinatis, known as the Terminator, wrestled for years in America and Japan, taking home many titles for the family. While eldest brother Joseph Michael Laurinatis would go on to become Road Warrior Animal. But you saw the thumbnail. Today we're here to have a little chat about the middle brother, John Laurinaitis. John was born on the 31st of July 1962 and began his wrestling career in 1986 at the age of 24. Under the name Johnny Ace, he wrestled for the National Wrestling Alliance and Jim Crockett Promotions. When JCP was bought out by Turner Broadcasting Systems to create WCW, Johnny moved and formed a tag team with Shane Douglas called the Dynamic Dudes, managed by the illustrious Jim Cornette. Johnny would go on to wrestle for All Japan Pro Wrestling, and in 1990 would choose to stay in Japan as they cut ties with the National Wrestling Alliance in the States. He wrestled in Japan for the next 10 years, becoming All-Asian Tag Team Champion twice with partner Kenta Kobashi, and 4 times World Tag Team Champion, again twice with Kobashi, once with Steven Williams, and the last time with Bart Gunn in 1999. He was ranked number 77 in Wrestling Illustrated's Top 500 Wrestlers of 97. But with the split of All Japan Pro Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Noah, Laurinaitis took the opportunity to make the move back to America. He was looking to retire from the ring and take up more of a backstage role within the circuit. Falling right back in with Turner Broadcasting, he started work for WCW in 2000, replacing Vince Russo as head booker. In March of 2001, the WWF acquired certain assets of the WCW. One of those assets, John Laurinaitis. They'd take him on as a road agent. Then in 2004, he would be promoted to VP of Talent Relations, replacing good old JR himself, Jim Ross. By 2007, he had become Senior Vice President of WWE and finally Executive Vice President in March of 2009. After a bit of corporate reshuffling, he would land himself in the role of Senior Vice President of Talent Operations. While here, he had his ups and downs. He was accused of having very little to do with WWE's developmental territory, Ohio Valley Wrestling, and was at the top when they cut ties. It's said that John preferred the nightlife in Florida, and that played a big part in his reasoning to move the developmental territory to Orlando. He had a shout out when CM Punk went a little off script on Raw in June of 2011. Then during the Punk-Cena fight 3 weeks later, Laurinaitis would show up flanking McMahon, only to be knocked out by Cena. By 2011, he had become a regular appearance on the show, having a beef with Triple H that ultimately had him become the general manager of Raw, where he went on to fire Jim Ross again. This on-screen madness continued into 2012, starting a feud with SmackDown general manager Theodore Long, firing Big Show, then showing up on a mobility scooter to reveal Big Show was back, but now he was working for him. All of this led to Laurinaitis getting a job evaluation by Vince himself, in the ring, on Raw, only to have Big Show agree to a steel cage match against Cena to save Johnny's job. Big Show also had the honour of knocking out McMahon during a scuffle with Cena and ring security at this. Short story, even shorter, Big Show lost, and John... But something odd happened the week of the fight. Now, we all know, fired in the ring doesn't necessarily mean fired from the company. Somebody could have a holiday booked, they could have sick family members, The Rock could be off making another god-awful movie. Any number of reasons could see any star leave the tour for any number of reasons. But this one was different. A few days before, on the 11th of June, John Laurinaitis' bio was removed from the WWE corporate website index of executive officers. After his on-screen firing, he would fall back into the role of road agent and act as a producer for the company, showing up from time to time on screen at events. He'd stay in this role until 2021, when he would be promoted back to head of talent relations for WWE. But in 2022, the Wall Street Journal released an investigative report into a $1.5 million settlement and non-disclosure agreement signed in 2012. This allegedly names Laurinaitis and details an affair that took place between him and an employee of the company. The woman alleges that she was demoted for ending a sexual relationship with Laurinaitis. so there aren't many concrete allegations against Laurinaitis. Vince left a handy paper trail on his rampage through the wrestling world, loads of court filings and witness statements. But Laurinaitis is more rumour and offhand comments here and there. I'm going to take a look at a few of them so you can get an idea for the kind of person we're talking about before we move to 2024 and what Laurinaitis is accused of now. In 2011, on AfterBuzz TV, David Lagana, a writer who had been jumping between the wrestling companies at the time, and Maria Kanellis, ex-WWE diva, would jokingly remark about Laurinatis, a hot tub, and two people that look similar.
I'm saying, but yeah, oh, okay. Yeah, creative's got nothing for you, even though it's me. I don't like you because you won't get in the hot tub.
So we're not saying anything any different than anybody else.
He's never been in a hot tub?
He's, never been in a hot tub with two people that just happen to look similar.
Kanellis would go on to play down the comments after the story gained a bit of traction, saying, "We make jokes, poke fun, show respect, educate, and talk about news and gossip. No one forces you to watch. The Bellas play bad girls on TV. As such, we talk about them as bad girls. It's a show, but thank you for talking about it so much. All press is good press." But also adding, "I have sacrificed a lot because of my strong morals, but one thing I will never sacrifice is my values. I will not get ahead just because I play the game. Even though I know how, I will succeed on merit and talent, or I will fail, and failure is just another step towards success." Now, it's never been clarified what morals Kanellis was discussing. There had been an ongoing feud between the Bella twins and Kanellis, and she would later go on to accuse them of blocking her return to the WWE in 2013. So there was plenty of bad blood. Tony Atlas would have a few choice words to say about the sisters.
But they like doing it to people.
Did you get a bit of a show?
No, I just hear in the dressing room, some guys, they did that too. They wait for you to fall asleep and they go and pee crap on you.
None of this has ever even been remotely confirmed. The twins say it never happened. Laurinatis says it never happened. And I, for everyone's sake, hope it didn't happen. As on March 24th, 2016, Laurinatis would go on to marry Kathy Colas, the Bella twins' mother, making them his stepdaughters. It's all really starting to feel like a Vince storyline. As a quick mention, because every rock you look under there seems to be more allegations, on June 18th, 2020, while working as Vice President for the National Wrestling Alliance, David Lagana would be accused of sexual assault by independent wrestler Liz Savage. Savage posted on Twitter detailing a night where they were sharing a bed as they had been living as roommates for a few weeks. She woke up to find Lagana's hand under her underwear while he was touching himself with his other one. When she rejected him, he then kicked her out of the house. The day after the allegations, Lagana would step down from his role in the National Wrestling Alliance, saying, "I voluntarily stepped down from my position as Vice President of Lighting One Inc. and its company National Wrestling Alliance. After learning of her allegations, I did so because they predate this position, and I don't want to involve the men and women of the National Wrestling Alliance during this time." Lagana responded by denying all accusations and clarifying that it was the landlord that said either Miss Savage goes on the lease or she has to leave. "I valued my friendship with Liz. I'm sorry that she feels I somehow wronged her. However, the incident she describes did not happen." We'll leave Lagana here as he has very little to do with Laurinatis. In 2017, ex-wrestler AJ Lee released a book called "Crazy is My Superpower: How I Triumphed by Breaking Bones, Breaking Hearts, and Breaking the Rules." In it, she details an incident with someone within the WWE Talent Relations team, where they said to her, "No one wants to have sex with you. Do you see how that's a problem for us? I don't know how they do things in FCW, but here we have standards our women are proud to stand up to." Menzes has never named names as to who exactly said it to her, but a few ex-stars have also mentioned moments they've had behind the scenes. Angelina Love, 7-time TNA Women's Champion winner, talked about a time running into Laurinatis in catering.
This is how he puts it, right? He's like, "What's your height?" And I was like, 5'5". He's like, "How much do you weigh?" And I was like, 130 pounds. And he's like, "So tell me, do you think that, how do you feel about your height to weight ratio? Do you feel like being 5'5" and 130 pounds, do you feel like that's a good..."
Another wrestler, Sexy Star, mentioned that while at an FCW talent evaluation clinic, a member of the WWE talent relations team would say to the women present, "When it comes to hiring female talent, the standard is if they aren't pretty enough to appear in Playboy, then they shouldn't be hired." Talent like Alicia Fox, Kelly Kelly, and his now stepdaughters, the Bella Twins, would be picked from bikini catalogues and approached to join the WWE directly. They were all hired with little to no actual wrestling experience and handpicked by John himself. Kelly Kelly would have the worst of these TV debuts. In June 2006 on ECW, Kelly was sent out in front of a house audience of 10,000 people and a TV audience of nearly 3 million. She was told to dance and strip to entertain the audience before the main event. It's very obvious that these examples are nothing when compared to the Janel Grant allegations or the sworn affidavit by Ashley Massaro that came to light after her death. But I mention them to show the culture around John when he was heading up talent relations. The man took the idea of the Divas and really ran with it, caring little for the overall quality of the wrestling and more about the marketability of the women themselves. Kelly Kelly was hired to do the job of a professional wrestler, but week after week was sent out to do the job of a professional stripper. You had bikini contests, strip poker, pillow fights, mud wrestling.
All I know is Eric Bischoff is a genius. This is one of the greatest matches I'd ever seen.
I'd be lying if I said none of these existed before Laurinatis got involved with WWE, but women's wrestling certainly didn't thrive under his guidance. And I'm not saying these matches should never have existed or could never exist again. Some. But maybe the way they were handled didn't exactly show respect for the performers. As long as everyone involved is okay with what's happening, I have no issue. But as time goes by, we get more and more stories from ex-wrestlers talking about how they felt pressured into doing things that made them very uncomfortable. One last story on company culture. Ashley Massaro joined the WWE roster after winning the 2005 Raw Divas search. She had been approached by a WWE casting director during a swimsuit pageant. Massaro had been a very successful model since college, having done shoots for the likes of Stuff magazine in 2002. Although she had never wrestled, her brother, father and uncle had all competed as amateur wrestlers. Massaro would go on to work for the WWE until 2008. She had asked to have her contract cut a few weeks short as her daughter was sick, but Massaro later claimed that Vince had tried to sabotage her career after she rejected a sexual advance made by him, so she wanted out. In 2016, she joined a class action lawsuit with 50 other ex-WWE stars against the WWE. The case was alleging that the company concealed risks and injuries that caused them neurological damage. Massaro had suffered numerous concussions over her career, but she had also made another claim. Massaro alleged that on the 2006 Tribute to the Troops tour, she had been suffering from menstrual cramps, but a US Army soldier insisted that she was suffering from dehydration and took her to a nearby military base. When she was there, she was given an IV and told this was pretty common. After sitting for a few hours, she would be approached by a man claiming to be an army doctor. She noted that he wasn't wearing the scrubs that the other doctors had wore. He leaned in and administered another IV. Then he and a female officer moved Massaro to a private room, where he injected her with something that paralyzed her and proceeded to sexually assault her while the woman kept watch. Massaro was fully conscious but unable to move during the entire experience. A supervisor for the tour, Gary Hart, would come to see how Ashley was doing. Finally, Gary returned and was banging on the door. The man and woman yelled 1 minute and threw a dirty quilt on me as I was lying naked on the table. And when Gary entered the room, he attempted to ask them what was going on, but they immediately stormed out. At the time, my body was still limp and my speech impaired, so Gary wrapped me in a quilt, carried me to the Humvee outside and took me back to the hotel room to put me in my bed. The people that knew what had happened on the tour kept the secret until they got back to the US. Massaro was called to a meeting with Vince, Laurinatis and a number of WWE executives, where Massaro claims Vince said, "If I disclosed this incident, it would ruin the relationship between the WWE and the US military." He then asked not to let one bad experience ruin the good work they were doing. In a filing about the case in 2016, WWE called the claim a stale and baseless allegation. The lawsuit was dismissed in 2018. 1 year later, on May 16, 2019, Massaro would be found dead in her home in New York, having apparently committed suicide. After her passing, WWE would go on to release a letter claimed to be from Massaro, in which she apologised for being part of the suit and that it had all gotten out of hand. After her death, Miss Massaro's lawyer released the content of the affidavit to the public. WWE immediately responded saying, "At no time was Vince McMahon or the management of WWE ever informed by Ashley Massaro or anybody else that she had been sexually assaulted, drugged, raped, or sodomized by a military doctor with a nurse standing guard while on the Goodwill Tour in 2007 to US military bases in Kuwait. In fact, if she ever articulated such a claim to WWE, we would have reported it immediately to the base commander. At no time was there ever a meeting between Vince McMahon, Kevin Dunn, John Laurinaitis, or other company executives in which she told them of such a claim and was instructed to keep it quiet." Just after, in June 2019, an investigation was opened by the Naval Criminal Investigative Service looking into Massaro's allegations. The report was released in March 2024. In it, the NCIS investigators give us some details into the interviews carried out. The physician's assistant, who had treated Massaro, recalled her being accompanied by an unidentified civilian male in his 30s. When he first checked Ashley, he believed she was drowsy but able to hold conversation and not slurring her words. He mentioned that another person working in the facility remarked that she may be high, but they had little experience with drugs and alcohol on the base. It is possible Massaro had taken something while there. Over the years, she has opened up about drug abuse throughout her career. The PA left Massaro for a little while, returning with a female corpsman to conduct an exam, including a pelvic exam that Massaro had agreed to. From the PA's interview, Redacted stated that during the exam with the female corpsman in the room, Redacted banged on the door and was calling Massaro's name and asking her, "Is everything okay?" Redacted stated that he had stopped the exam briefly so that Massaro could respond. Redacted stated that Massaro responded and said that everything was fine and she was having an exam done. Redacted stated that Massaro seemed nonchalant when she said everything was fine, and the manager stopped banging on the door and did not knock again. These details are strangely similar to Ashley's affidavit, implying that maybe the truth lies somewhere between them. Maybe the exam was entirely medical and the PA was doing what he thought was the right thing at the time. But also, maybe Ashley wasn't in a state of mind to give informed consent to the exam. She does remember Gary being there and banging on the door, but according to Massaro, Gary brought her to the Humvee and then to the hotel. Jimmy Hart's blog on the day-to-day activities of the tour paints a slightly different picture. He talks about her needing medical attention during the day and Gary picking her up after. He says that while leaving the medical centre, Ashley insisted on being part of the final photo shoot for the day on the base before returning to the hotel. Now, I don't know what happened in July 2006, and with Ashley's death in 2019, and the case being closed due to lack of evidence, I'm not sure we'll ever have a satisfactory answer. Ashley's memories of the day seem to be somewhat fractured, but I certainly do believe something traumatic happened to Ashley Massaro on the military base. In February 2024, John Laurinaitis would go behind the back of WWE and release a statement through his lawyer stating, "Most upper-level management at some point became aware of the allegations and ensured all proper WWE protocols were followed, including privacy for the alleged victim." This is the first time anyone from within WWE has claimed they knew of the incident, and it looks like Laurinaitis might out everybody that's been denying it all these years. The Janel Grant allegations are pretty shocking, and most of them are against Vince McMahon himself, but Grant has pointed the finger at Laurinatis. Grant claims to have been coerced into sending Laurinatis explicit pictures of herself. McMahon, in May 2021, then organised a threesome between himself, Miss Grant and Johnny. He also scheduled appointments for Grant to sexually service Laurinatis. During the threesome, Miss Grant asked Laurinatis if she was the first woman McMahon had introduced to him in such a setting. Laurinatis shot McMahon a look, who then intervened by kissing her and starting the threesome. Days after, McMahon would text Grant saying that Laurinatis hugged me like a bear and said thank you to me about 12 times already. Laurinatis himself messaged Miss Grant saying, "Thanks for the fun afternoon." She was then transferred into talent relations, working under Laurinatis with the expectation that she would continue to service him. On more than one occasion, Grant was instructed to pick up Johnny's hotel room key and service him as breakfast before the start of the workday. Grant alleges that in June of 2021, McMahon and Laurinatis sexually assaulted her in an office in the WWE HQ in the middle of the workday. They took turns restraining her for the other, saying "no means yes" and "take it, bitch." A week later, McMahon gifted Grant $15,000 worth of gift cards to Bloomingdale's. In January of 2022, Grant was informed that Vince's wife, Linda McMahon, had found out about their affair. Vince said that Linda was going to divorce him, but if Grant would sign an NDA, Linda wouldn't file and Miss Grant's name wouldn't become a news headline. Vince said he would do everything he could to keep her reputation intact, then led her to the bedroom for another coerced sexual encounter. I know we've moved a bit away from Laurinatis, but we just need to go quickly over what happened with the NDA that landed all of this in the news. Grant was offered $1 million in exchange for signing. She demanded more to cover the potential lost earnings, and they had agreed to $3 million. This was to be paid in 6 installments. The arrangement was reached after some panic messages and calls from McMahon about needing the NDA signed because he was under a tight deadline to report pending and threatened legal actions to the WWE Board of Directors, specifically the Audit Committee. On February 4th, she was paid the first $1 million, and on February 9th, she handed in her notice to the WWE. On March 30th, 2022, Grant's counsel received a call from McMahon's attorney telling them that there had been an anonymous email about the relationship between Miss Grant, McMahon and Laurinatis. Once the story was published in June, Miss Grant received no more payments from the February NDA. That's the reason all of this is coming out now. Grant is claiming McMahon didn't keep his side of the deal, she wants it voided and is naming the people she knows are involved. Another thing to keep in mind is that the Biden White House had signed the Speak Out Act into law in December 2022. This is an act to limit the judicial enforceability of pre-dispute, non-disclosure and non-disparagement contract clauses relating to disputes involving sexual assault and sexual harassment. So by the looks of it, NDA or not, McMahon can't block this story from coming out. Grant and many other women are free to talk about their experiences with the WWE over the years, and they all have the receipts to back up these claims. I do just want to add that Vince has denied all allegations, he intends to defend his name and is willing to go to court. So we'll see. The lawyer representing Laurinatis, Edward Brennan, came out to say, Mr. Laurinatis denies the allegations in the misguided complaint and will be vigorously defending these charges in court, not the media. Like the plaintiff, Mr. Laurinatis is a victim in this case, not a predator. The truth will come out. Followed by, read the allegations, read the federal statute, power, control, employment supervisory capacity, dictatorial sexual demands with repercussions if not met. Count how many times in the complaint Vince exerts control over both of them. Laurinatis seems to be saying that he's in the same position as Miss Grant, that McMahon was using the same power and control over his career, forcing him to do whatever Vince wanted. Laurinatis coming out to make a statement like this seems to be confirming something happened, but we aren't sure exactly what Johnny is admitting to. We'll just have to wait and see how this one plays out for him. Thanks so much for sticking with me to the end. Let me know, what do you think Johnny's going to do next? Surely if anyone has any secrets, it's going to be him. He has to have something to throw out there in the coming weeks. So we'll see.